seconds. The video's on. I'll give you a little thumbs up, Ben.
Hello and welcome to this special live edition. Technicalities all pending and that we're all logged on properly. We've got our technology gurus on it right now telling us that we are live on YouTube, brought to you by StreamYard for this special edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am Baz Barrett. With me, as always, is Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest. But because this is a special edition and we are looking back over the course of the entire season, just gone for Villa 21-22. We thought we'd bring special guests who have been with us during this journey. And so delighted to say we're joined by Liam of the Qatar Lions and also Mr. Aston Villa himself, Connor Sherry of Ability Counts. So really great to have you both back with us for this special edition. And we've also taken some inspiration from Steven Gerrard in the postseason because he's already gone to strengthen the squad with a few new signings in order to get Villa higher up the table next season. And so we at Talk of the Trinity are no different. We've already scoured the market to bring two top quality signings to join you on this show this evening. So we're delighted to say for their debut on the Talk of the Trinity podcast that we're joined by Gareth, AVFC Analytics, anything stat-based. He is your man, and we will, be delving into that expertise as the show goes on, mainly to see if what we've been saying, me and Will, during the course of the season was actually borne out by any stats or whether we were making it all up. We'll find that out. And also, we're delighted to say we're joined by Paddy from over, because we didn't have enough Irish contribution to this podcast, so we thought, let's get some more in. And from the excellent For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast, sure you've all listened to it who's watching it live. So great to have you both here with us today. And thanks for all of you for popping in. And I think we just need to get straight into it in terms of the season just gone. And we'll start with the positives in terms of 14th place. There were some good moments, some bad moments. But focusing on the good moments, for you, Liam, what was your performance, or if you can't condense it into 90 minutes, a moment of the season for what's just gone?
Yeah, I think there's been lots of positives throughout the season. A highlight for me has definitely been that 1-0 win that we got against United. That Fernandez miss at the end as well. I've got a lot of mates that are United supporters, so that was always nice to get one up and then. They're few and far between. And then in regards to kind of overall performances, I think, in regards to the best 90 minutes that we put together this season, I think Southampton 4-0 was definitely one that kind of stood out in the memory. It was probably the most complete performance. It was nice to see Ings and Watkins kind of pairing up together. So, they were probably the two that were stand out to me. There's probably lots that I'm missing out on. But yeah, I think they were definitely some positives. And in the Gerrard kind of era there towards the end as well. So yeah, lots of positives, lots of things to take into next year, which will obviously get us really excited.
Yeah, I'd say in terms of obviously they will be front runners for moments of the season. But for you, Paddy, on your podcast, which moments do you remember enjoying discussing the most in terms of Villa over the last season?
At the risk of sounding repetitive, that win at Old Trafford has to be the highlight for me. I'm not sure which dance was better. Was it David Scott's dance or Emmy Martinez's dance on your podcast? But for me, living in Ireland where half the population are Liverpool and the other half are Man United, to be a Villa fan and turning them over makes us very, very happy here.
Yep. And for you, Connor, obviously you've been to a lot of games, home and away, in the supporters enclosures, both at Villa Park and abroad. For you on your travels this season, do any particular moments stand out for you as being head and shoulders above any others?
There has been quite a few games I have watched this season what's been quite impressive, like very entertaining to watch. For example, definitely Southampton at home, a good comfortable 4-0 win. That was unbelievable performance. I know everyone keeps saying Man United as well was definitely up there, like a 1-0 win. And when Courtney House scored that header in I think 89th or 90th minute in the game, and that put a smile on my face for definite. And Leeds United was another game, comfortable away, 3-0, and then a few other games after. But other games I did go to as well from away was Brighton and Burnley. There was another game that I was quite comfortable in, and I think throughout the season, it's been up and down. But I want to be positive every time about the Villa. But just thankfully now the season is over, and I can just easily now concentrate for this season because it's really looking good so far with the signings that we just brought in, which is unbelievable. Hopefully, it can continue. Yeah.
Yeah, so looking positive so far. And for you, Gareth, were there any kind of moments, kind of from a fan perspective, that were kind of also similarly impressive in terms of the overall performance when looking at those stats and numbers under, Smith or
Gerrard? Yeah. I mean, I've got to go with Connor's. The Connor's out of everyone's sort of favourite moments or favourite games that were played. I think for me, the 3-0 Everton game was a real sort of almost, I think we thought it was a bit of a turning point. Do you know what I mean? It was almost a bit, we sort of really see things coming together, and especially the away win at Leeds. I think that was important, considering we sort of, I think a lot of people thought we might slip up there, but we had a convincing performance, and I think they're probably my two favourites, to be honest.
Yep. And for you, Will, apart from your answer of any game that Danny Ings scored was a highlight of the season for you, were there any particular games, moments standing out for you looking back over the last 9-10 months?
Well, I'm ashamed to say that my favourite game or moment really didn't involve Danny Ings scoring. Please just don't tell anyone. My favourite moment has got to be the 2-0 home win over Brighton to kickstart the Steven Gerrard revolution. Ollie Watkins scoring that cracking goal after Marvellous Nakamba passed the ball forward to him to start the move. And then Tyrone Mings' second goal in front of the whole end. It blew the roof off the stadium, didn't it, really? And I think it ushered in a new era, gave us a lot of optimism, because there were a few doubts over Gerrard from some fans, rightly so, with him only managing in Scotland before, and also because of what a fan favourite Dean Smith had become, doing everything that he did for us, very much a Villa legend. But I think if I had to pick a moment or a game, it would be that 2-0 home win over the Seagulls.
So for me, in terms of moments of the season, I remember Wells being in how can I describe the shop I was in with my other half? A shop I would not have chosen myself to be in, and I was frantically checking the Brighton score during the second half in particular. So that is one of the moments for me, albeit for slightly different reasons than it was for people who were actually in the stadium or watching on TV at the time. In terms of, for me personally, I think the most complete performance I saw at Villa Park was the 4-0 win against Southampton. Remember that they had come into the game in quite an impressive run of form at the time, and we just kind of dispatched them with the proverbial back of the hand. And it's in terms of hopefully moving forwards, there'll be more performances like that next season. But in terms of who will be in the team for those performances next season, players who are currently in the squad this season, you'd expect there's going to be a few incomings and a few outgoings as well. But just looking back over the course of this season for you, Paddy, who's been your player of the season in a Villa shirt?
I'm torn between a couple, but for me, it has to be Jacob Ramsey. I think this is his breakthrough season. He's just been incredible for me throughout. He went through a bit of a barren spell towards maybe the third quarter of the season where he was very quiet and probably could have been stood down with a rest. But I think other than that, for a guy of his tender years to play the way he did and being one of our own was just one of the standout highlights of the season for me. So he'd be run close by the likes of Matty Cash, I think. But for me, it's definitely him.
I mean, it certainly adds a level to the excitement of Villa fans, seeing somebody come through the youth system and actually establish themselves in the first team of their own right. And, certainly Ramsey's rise through the ranks this season has certainly been one of the highlights. Is Ramsey the top of your shortlist as well, Gareth, or have you got another personal?
No, mine's still Matty Cash. I think for the most improved, I think we can go Jacob Ramsey for what he did. I agree. To come into that side at such a young age and play the way to the level that he did was also very good. But I think Matty Cash, considering he didn't sort of had quite a bit of a dip, didn't he? For the second quarter of the season, if you like, but then really sort of come on leaps and bounds, and I think everyone sort of wrote him off a little bit, but then he sort of towards the latter half of the season, he really sort of came on for me. I think he deserved to get it. I think he was, most improved player, shall we say, for the second half of the season, I think certainly in January, with all the talk about him potentially being off to Atletico Madrid, and there's almost among some Villa fans an air of resignation that he would be off. So, as you say, coming back strong in that second half of the season, almost capped off winning goal at Man City, not quite. Yeah. But I think, and then signing a new contract. I mean, how many players do stay for the duration of a contract? But it is a good signal of both his personal wish to be there and also been what Gerrard is building. But for you, Liam, got two great individual performances there, Cash and Ramsey. Anybody else caught your eye, or are you sticking with the majority so far?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the majority. I think Cash, was really excited by him after seeing some of his performances with Forest before he came to Villa. I was really excited. And I was a little disappointed last year that maybe he wasn't getting as high up the kind of the touchline as we imagined he would, as a kind of converted right winger into a right back. And I think this season he's absolutely epitomised what Villa kind of needed. It's the kind of the intensity and the kind of playing for the badge kind of effort. And I think under Gerrard, he's kind of been rejuvenated again even further, in the sense that he's been encouraged to bomb up the line and play higher up the field. And we're starting to see goal contributions from him. We're starting to see a lot more assists. And I think, he's become a really important member to the team. But definitely Ramsey deserves a nod, because he very much surprised me. I was struggling to kind of see what Ramsey was going to bring to this team. And he's been really, really impressive this year. There's been some very impressive performances from other players, but I think those two are definitely the highlights of this season.
Yep. Though, Connor, you've always got an eye on the defensive side of the field due to your on-field performances for the Ability Counts team. Is it Matty Cash for you as well in terms of your player this season, or have you got somebody else at the top of your list?
There have been quite a few players who I thought played well really throughout the season. But for me, I love Jacob Ramsey, right? But for me, it's going to be Matty Cash. Reasons why in Matty Cash, it's been big, as what Liam was saying, massive big improvements. Like, I remember the start of the last season just gone, and it wasn't up to his level. And I remember when he was trying to cross the ball quite a few times when he went forward, it was keep going by a goal kick, and I thought, oh, that's not good. Needs to try and improve on that. But since Gerrard came in, he's improved Matty Cash immensely, and I realise he's going more forward, like taking players on from his position, trying to score loads of goals or creating assists as well, which I like to see from a right back, especially like for myself, because it improves my game if I watch him on the pitch. So yeah, it's a bonus really. But I'm just hoping Matty Cash can keep to his same expectations for this season coming up as well, and see what happens. Yeah, Matty Cash is for me.
Though, Will, I'm going to ask you a question about Matty Cash, mainly because I want to try and reduce the time you have to say Danny Ings was your player of the team. But for Matty Cash, obviously, he got better in the second half of the season. Do you think that's the Gerrard effect? The fact that he started playing international football for Poland, his own natural high standards returning, or a little bit of all three?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of all three, to be honest with you, really. The Gerrard effect has had a massive effect on a lot of the players. He's demanding a lot more from them, isn't he? You can see, and I'm sure Gareth will be able to tell us more, but you can see that Cash is having to do a lot more running up and down the pitch, getting forward, contributing to attacks as well. He's obviously been out on the training ground, practicing his final delivery, his goals. You know, I think his goal contributions for us this season of 7, as we said on the last episode, is more than Jack Grealish got at Man City. So maybe City spent 100 million on the wrong floppy-haired Lothario from Aston. But yeah, you know, that I think as well, as you say, getting into the Poland team and wanting to keep out whoever his competition is there as well has helped him discover, you know, a reason to want to better himself every game and to keep improving the performances that he's putting in.
Yeah, and I think there was the conception, the expectation, which is largely borne out to be true when Gerrard came in, of the fullbacks being an integral part of Gerrard's system, being higher up the pitch. From an analytics point, Gareth, has there been a noticeable difference between how high Cash has been as opposed to the time under Dean Smith, or is Matty Cash doing what Matty Cash always does?
No, there's a definite improvement. I think you can see a definite improvement if you look at him from the early stages for when Gerrard took over towards the end of the season. There's there's a massive difference in not only the sort of how high he gets, but the speed at which he does it. And I think that he wasn't that sort of confident as Luca Digne in those sort of areas. I don't think he had a great deal of belief in his crossing ability. I don't think he saw himself as an attacking fullback. And I think over the course of that time that Gerrard took over, you could see that progression, as like Connor said, the ability to then take players on, which, let's face it, he was never even competent in doing, let alone attempting. And he sort of attempted to do that. And you can see him getting higher. Again, pointing back to that nearly scoring at Man City. That's exactly the point of how high he was getting towards the end of the season. And that's at Manchester City, you know, where you tend to be a little bit more reserved in a deeper block, but they weren't. They were sort of still going, whether that was because there was nothing riding on the game for Villa, I don't know. And they just sort of tested things out. But you could see the difference from, like I say, that time Gerrard took over to his ability to, I think he's still got to work on that delivery. For me, he's never going to be that sort of player that Luca Digne is, that type of right back. I think he's going to be able to deliver across, but I'm still not convinced about how far he can progress with that, the quality of it. So I suppose that remains to be seen. But yeah, give him a bit more time, maybe, and a bit more practice. You don't know, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I suppose we'll see in terms of who Gerrard brings in this summer, whether right back is high up the list of priorities in order to provide some competition for Cash, or whether Gilbert comes back in a place in the squad, or whether one of the younger players gets a chance. I mean, that's going to be, well, no pun intended, an interesting side battle in terms of some of the main squad players that are going to be squad places that are up for grabs next season. And speaking of squad places that are up for grabs, there's going to be a few players looking nervously over their shoulder at what Gerrard is doing in the summer. And for some players, that's going to be because they haven't performed to expectation during the season just gone. For you, Will, obviously we've talked every week about what's been going on the field. Looking back kind of over this season, is there a player in particular for you who you feel's underachieved based on what the hope expectation was last summer?
I think, yeah, regrettably, there's a couple of players who probably fall into that bracket. You know, you can look at the new signings and think, have they all achieved what we thought that they would do? Even a couple of the signings from last year. Though for me, there's two players who I was really closely looking at, and one of them I've had to discard because I realised that I was being a bit of a plonker, to be honest with you, because I was thinking Emi Martinez hasn't had his best season, but then again, you also have to look at the defence in front of him, and the defence in front of him haven't had their best season either. And the one player who, for me, has been not performing as well as he could do is Ezri Konsa. You know, I know Ezri Konsa's got a lot of fans on Twitter. I I don't mean to slag him off at all, you know, but he just hasn't seemed as confident when he's been playing. He's looked a little bit shaky at times. He's been sent off twice this season as well, which obviously will have knocked his confidence, and you wouldn't have expected from him. But he's just made a few little errors, which seem uncharacteristic for him. But hopefully, when he comes back from his injury next season, we'll see him push him to get into that starting lineup, either alongside Tyrone Mings or Diego Carlos or you know, Callum Chambers. Hopefully we will see the best out of him again, and he'll be getting to those levels where he was knocking on the door for an international call-up, whether that's England, whether it's Portugal, you know. But yeah, sorry, Ezri Konsa, please don't throw any more tomatoes at my house. I don't need it.
So I'm glad you went first with Konsa, because I was going to bring him up as what I thought was potentially going to be a controversial pick, but not necessarily in terms of if you're grading every performance out of 10 and then the lowest performer became your underachiever. I don't think Konsa has been the worst, or in terms of really kind of near the bottom, but I just think you mentioned it in terms of the England squad, and it was right about this time last summer before the Euros, there's quite a few people saying in terms of if there should be one Villa centre-back in the England squad, it should be Konsa based on performances alone. Obviously got a World Cup coming up later on in the year. The voices for Konsa are probably quieter now than they were a year ago. And I think that is because of his performances last season. There was a heightened expectation that he would kick on this season, and on the eye test, I agree with you, Will. He hasn't quite matched those standards, and as you mentioned, there's been a few kind of red cards, there's been a few errors, and maybe in the second half of this season, the rotation with Chambers perhaps affects his confidence a little bit. But if you're looking in terms of performances since Chambers came in, I'd say Chambers was probably much better than Konsa. Certainly in terms of he seemed a lot more confident and assured. And when you mentioned that, maybe losing that little bit of confidence. Though, for you, Gareth, are you joining the Konsa bandwagon, or is there somebody else that you've been looking at thinking not quite up to those?
I think you could pick from a number. I'm a bit hesitant to sort of dig out certain players, especially in the midfield, because I think we could probably all say McGinn and Louise probably haven't been at their best this season. The thing is that this is all, a lot of it is system dependent. They were quite used to the same system under Dean Smith. Steven Gerrard comes in, and all of a sudden they're being asked to play sort of various different positions, whether it's in a number 8 or, Douglas Luiz in a number 8, and then next week he's playing a defensive midfield. You're struggling sort of, apart from Jacob Ramsey, you could say was consistent on the left of that midfield three, was probably okay. But I think, Konsa's not had the greatest of seasons. I think you could probably pick 5 or 6, couldn't you? And if you were being fair, I think we could probably pick 5 or 6. And I would include Martinez in that. But I agree with Will. I think the trouble is what happens in front of him has not sort of shown any consistency. But then again, I don't think, like I say, the shape of the team has been sort of a bit different. I know they're supposed to adapt, but they haven't, a lot of them, been able to do that as best as what we can. And I think, to be fair, I think we all expected a bit more from everybody. As he's had a fair amount of time, and I think we just expected a little bit more than 14th. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that was certainly when Gerrard came in, the expectation was top half minimum, really. And I think,
it's difficult because we conceded 2 more goals than we scored. So we conceded 52 goals and only scored 50. It's not great. You could argue either way, but I just think we all expected a little bit more, to be honest.
I think Gerrard did as well, based on what he's been doing already in the transfer window. Well, the transfer window hasn't even opened yet, and he's already getting his business done. Though, for you, Paddy, we've mentioned a few players who perhaps have not quite lived up to expectations this season. Were there any particularly for you who you felt fall into that category, or was it for like Gareth said, was there quite a few who you felt you could have picked from?
Well, exactly that. There's quite a few. I think with the exception of the 2 January signings, or even the 3 January signings of Dean Coutinho, who was also hot and cold at times, and Callum Chambers, who I thought has been a very welcome addition. I think you can take your pick across the board. I think it's important that we say that we had a very truncated pre-season. We had matches cancelled. We had players injured. There was a load of things at play that really played against Dean Smith going into the new season. For me, this just a personal opinion, and I know Will is going to be pretty pissed off with this answer, but I'm disappointed that our striking options that we have didn't score enough goals. When you're 10 or 12 games into the season and it's your third choice striker who's your top scorer, you have to be asking serious questions. Now, as I said at the start, it was a bad preseason. Nobody had a particularly good preseason, and I think that affected us right across the board. And I think we're going to look at wholesale changes over the next, whatever it is, 8 weeks or so. I think we could potentially, the way Gerrard sets up with those attacking fullbacks, we could potentially see a back three. We could see Konza and Mings being bombed out of that back three as well. I think there's big plans there. I definitely think we'll be in a much better position to go and play like we did for 70 minutes against Man City, and use Coutinho as that weapon and have better players around him. Will make life a whole lot easier, and we'll concede less goals, obviously, because the ball is not getting back to anybody to make mistakes, in that back four or back three or five, whatever it is. But long story short, I'm disappointed with Danny Ings. I expected 20 goals. I would have been happy with 15. They never came. And the one thing I will say on him is he didn't get enough games for my liking. I think he needed a run in the team, and he just never got it throughout the season. I think the most he played in a row was 3 games. So it's unfortunate that it went that way, but I think he's a kind of player we could build this team around. Himself, Coutinho, the new signings coming in. It's very, very exciting. But the one, I won't leave it on Danny Ings. The one person who has really disappointed me is Morgan Sanson. I just had so much expectations for him to push on this season, albeit he had injuries, he had illness, everything went against him. So I'm reluctant to go all in on everybody, but there's going to be huge changes in the summer, and it will all come down to what we've just spoken about. And you can be sure that our pre-season is going to be top notch. The amount of work these guys are going to put in between now and us kicking ball on whatever it is, the 9th of August, a trip to Australia, a trip to France, the obligatory pre-season at Walsall. There's a lot going on, and it's amazing to see the transfers being done early, and not rushing people in at the last minute. So I hope before we get players back on the pitch, at the beginning back on the training pitch, I should say, at the beginning of July, that all our transfer business is done and we're not bringing people in panic buying just before the season kicks off.
In regards to that pre-season as well, we've had a comment from Abe who's mentioned that whilst the pre-season was very hit and miss, as you mentioned, Paddy, and you saved yourself with what you said about Danny Ings in the end. They mentioned that Grealish was also sold late too, so then we had to bring in a couple of other players, even though Buendia and Bailey were already done. Liam, was Grealish sold too late for you?
Yeah, I think we'll all agree that he was always going to be a loss, no matter what time of the season it came. I think they probably had Langa and all the guys were already making plans if he was to go. Which probably leads on to one of the guys I thought underachieved, obviously, was Leon Bailey. Didn't get a whole pile of games, injuries, but this guy was sold to us as the guy who was ripping up the Bundesliga, and he was going to be almost a guy who was going to emulate what Jack could possibly do. So he's definitely someone who I think was on that list of underachievers. But replacing Jack was always going to be difficult. The guys have all made really, really valid points there. but replacing Jack and coming 14th, I think isn't too bad. I think we might have had a few people who were thinking, are we a one-trick pony with Jack? Are we, possibly looking at a relegation? We brought in some really good signings. Didn't have a whole pile of gel, mixed preseason, games cancelled, COVID, lots of things going on. So I think, 14th kind of on the whole is disappointing, but I think it's given us time now. And as Paddy said, we've got lads working behind the scenes flat out. I think we will have most of our business done before we head to Australia in pre-season. But no, I'm definitely in the corner as well. The main guy I had picked out was Konza. From a guy who was looking at international, a guy who had only been dribbled past twice or something last season, and all of a sudden kind of being stretched and pulled apart. So it'll be interesting to see him kind of step up his game next year. But what I think a lot of us will need next year is guys who can kind of change to the systems very quickly. I don't think we've got a whole lot of players in the field who are good at organising things. And like we said, to kind of change to different formations with Gerrard, I think Konza was probably one of those ones who suffered with Cash being encouraged to bomb on and not having a whole pile of guys that were there to back him up. But no, look, we're in a very exciting time. It is another pre-season of transition, but I think we're going to come out the right side of it. So yeah, I've kind of named lots of people there, but I think Leon Bailey and Konza are the main ones.
I think you can certainly tell in terms of the transfer business Gerrard's done that he agrees with you, Liam, in terms of needing a few more characters, a few more leaders in particular in that squad. Or when I was at the Palace game in the Holt End, as the person sat next to me said, we need a few more shithouses, to use the technical legal phrase. But yeah, you'd fully expect, if the early business is anything to go by, that is going to be the direction we're going. But Connor, coming to you, apart from organising your pre-season trip to Australia to maybe get a game, was there anybody in terms of, we mentioned a few players already, anybody for you in particular who you felt was slightly disappointing for the last season?
I'm going to be honest, there has been quite a few players what disappoint me a little bit. I think probably number one is definitely Konza, because I thought last season he was absolutely top notch, so solid at the back with Tyrone Mings, but then for this season just gone, I just don't get why he hasn't continued that form. But I think that's what happens sometimes in football. You can sometimes play well, sometimes you don't. And then obviously Douglas Luiz as well. There has been some games he has been good, but some games it's just been very quiet, losing the ball very easily. Sometimes it can be too slow as well when he has the ball, and he needs to work on that a bit more, in my opinion. And then probably Bertram Traore as well. He had quite a few injuries this season, and he's the same person, really hasn't performed well either to the other season before. And then Leon Bailey, that's another massive one, in my opinion, because I thought when he first started at Villa, great, 30 mil, what a signing. But when the season started against Everton, he was on fire. But after that, he has loads of injuries. It just hasn't been good enough. And I just think now, we need to get rid of him. I just think he's a wasteful signing. Like, I want to try not to be too negative about players, but it's just me with performances, because I love very attacking, entertaining football. And if I don't see that a lot at Villa Park, I think just get rid of them. They're just not the point. And then strikers as well. Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings, I really thought they possibly could have got a lot of goals for Villa. But yeah, it's just, if you want to change for European football, we need to buy more quality players if you want to get into that European places. And yeah, so, that's my thoughts of a few players.
The more we can wind Will up, the better. So, as tempted as I'd be to bring it back round to Danny Ings, in terms of Bailey, I think it's probably the most important people who are going to be involved in deciding his future are going to be the club medical staff. In terms of getting him fit, as you mentioned, Connor, quite a lot of injuries during the course of the season, and if they consider that is just not going to be able to get a consistent run of games for non-footballing reasons, then yeah, it may be a situation where we look to sell. But moving back to slightly more positive memories, reminiscences over the last season, those moments where you're on the edge of your seat or sheet after seeing a great goal. And we've had a few this season, you know, some real memorable, great finishes. For you, Gareth, what's your favourite goal of the season for Villa?
I mean, the Danny Ings one was a good shout. I can't remember who it was against. It was at home, wasn't it? Was it the overhead kick style? So who was that against? Newcastle. Yeah, that was probably because that was the point where I thought to myself, you know, we might get a few goals out of him now. You know, that sort of bred a little bit of confidence, but then it never sort of really materialised, did it? But I think for me, that was probably my favourite. Yeah, I've got to say.
No, I suppose this is as good a time as any to pass back to Will. Was that your favourite goal of the season, or have you not pre-planned anything in particular at all?
Well, without thinking about it too much since August of last year, the Danny Ings goal would definitely be up there in my top one. But apart from that one, another goal that I thought was absolutely amazing, though I think the comparisons of it were a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Philip Coutinho at home to Southampton, where he had, I think it was 7 players in front of him, and he still managed to wiggle his way in the box and get it past all 7 of them into the bottom corner of the whole end. So, Philip Coutinho, I think you could also pick any of Jacob Ramsey's goals. He's had a bit of a goal of the season competition on his own, hasn't he? Really, but yeah, we'll go with Ings and Coutinho.
A joint honour from Mr. Trinity there. Very prestigious for Coutinho to actually be on the same billing as Danny Ings. So I think we'll say Coutinho's the real one. Though, Paddy, Will mentioned there's quite a few from Jacob Ramsey you could pick for goal of the season. Was one of his your choice, or have you gone for another Villa goal?
It wasn't. It's not my choice. And it would be narrowly into second. The goal against Norwich that he scored was an absolute gem of a goal, and it really catapulted him into, you know, everybody's minds all around the country. But without being too exact, my favourite goal came on the 10th of March at about 9:15 in the evening, when Callum Chambers pings one into the top corner against Leeds. And I just felt that, you know, I had fallen in love with Callum Chambers since he come. I just thought he's been an unsung hero every time he's been in there. And for him, he had just the week before played that ball to Coutinho, who put it back across to Ings against Norwich. And everybody thought it was Coutinho to play the initial ball. It was that good. So he has it in his locker. And then to put that one in the top corner against Leeds, that was the one that will stand out for me for many, many years to come. It was an absolute banger of a goal.
No, how about you, Connor? Whether you saw them with your own eyes or on TV, is there a particular favourite goal for you?
I think there's only about three or four if I can remember. I think number one, definitely Jacob Ramsey goal against Norwich away. I remember, I think Watkins passed to Ramsey and he just done a great one. I think he talked about 3 or 2 Norwich players on and he decided to go for it and bang. And that was a good goal. And then Callum Chambers, as what Paddy mentioned, what absolute banger that was. I was absolutely wild. I went wild when I was watching it on TV. Thought it was an amazing goal. And then what Gareth was saying as well from earlier is Danny Ings overhead kick against Newcastle. I thought that was great because I was there, so that was absolutely fantastic. The atmosphere was unbelievable on that day, and I think finally when I went to Brighton away, when I sat in one of the inclusion boxes, and I remember Luca Dean crossed it over to Matty Cash. I think Cash chested it, and then he shot the ball into left bottom corner, I think it was. And that was my other favourite goal as well. Yeah.
Certainly some great choices there, Connor. Though for you, Liam, any particular highlights for you?
Yeah, well, I had 3 written down, and all the guys have covered them. But in regards to the one that kind of got the Qatar Lions going was definitely the Ings one. I think, you know, it kind of came out of the blue. It was a long throw from Cash. We were kind of only just starting to see that he actually had that in the locker. It also was the Austin McPhee kind of input as well with the flick on from Mings, and then the goal kind of just came out of nowhere. I mean, I think we had about 15 lads at that game who were jumping up towards the screen. So that's definitely one for me that sticks out in the memory. But there's been some great goals. I'm also a big fan of that Buendia kind of does a little flick turn and opens up his body as he kind of pings it in around the corner. It was a lovely goal as well to mention. But no, the Ings one's definitely a standout one. Will owes me 50 quid. Just transfer that to me, Will.
Will do. I'll bring it when I come to Qatar in the World Cup. Right.
You're room for the night.
Yeah.
Certainly a few standout memories for the Villa this season, even if, as we mentioned, the overall league position maybe wasn't quite as high as we were hoping or anticipating. But we've already teased it a little bit in terms of looking forward to next season and some of the transfer business that we've already done. Gareth, for you, the business that we've done so far, is it leaving you salivating, waiting for next season?
Yeah, it looks good so far. So, yeah, I think depends who else is left to come in, what sort of positions we're looking to fill. Obviously, Kamara was courted from a little while back, and as was Mr. Basuma, who I don't think will be that long, I would imagine. I reckon that'll be not a surefire thing, but I think, the likelihood is that I reckon we're looking pretty good on that front. But it's a shame about Tarkowski, because I think we could have probably done with another centre half. A lot of people sort of asking me on Twitter and that whether I thought he was a great fit or anything, but I think we do need another centre half. I'm not sure about a right back. My choice is Borna Sosa. I think it'll be another welcome addition. But whether we're looking to have a backup for Matty Cash or replace him with a first starter, if you like, and Cash will then be the backup, I don't know. But yeah, Diego Carlos is another good fit. I think he should be right. But again, I'll wait to see. I've seen a lot of these players before, and they've all got pluses, they've all got minuses, and whether they fit into the Premier League are two different things. It's a very different league, isn't it, from a lot of others? So yeah, but so far so good, I think. But I think getting Basuma in, I think that will sort of really cement where we want to be, I think.
So for you, Paddy, Gareth mentions Basuma there. Would he be a welcome signing from your perspective?
Well, in terms of quality, yeah, absolutely. There's obviously the elephant in the room that the court case is still outstanding for him, which we obviously can't talk about. So we've got to wait until that's done, I would imagine, before any decision has been made, which is probably why it hasn't been done already, if he was that keen to take him. But look, the future is bright. We're making all the right moves in the transfer market. And the one thing we need to mention is it's a big transfer market, because from next season on, we've got 5 substitutes. So you can't have your bench full of people who are not going to be playing. You're going to need whatever it is, 8 or 9 subs on the match day, that you can pick somebody from every position to cover if you're making 5 substitutions. It will give us the opportunity, obviously, if we were playing a team that aren't doing particularly well, to rest players and then bring them in if we need a result, if we're fall behind or whatever. So for that reason, I think there's a lot going on. There's a lot of play. We've got to move out a bit of dead wood. Who that is anybody's guess. But for them to go out, we're going to need players in. So I would imagine it's going to be a very busy couple of months.
Yeah, so from your perspective, Liam, pleased with what you've seen so far? Thinking that we need a few more in?
Yeah, I think Gerard's kind of gone out straight away and he's addressed the issue of the spine, which is what he keeps on suggesting about all the time. I think getting Kamara in addresses that DM position very, very quickly. We've been screaming for that for about 3 transfer windows now. So that was exciting to get him nailed down. Basuma would be another one who would help control that midfield. We've got Diego coming in again, who will control that centre-back position. And I think, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Calvin Bassey. He's another kind of ball-playing centre-back that maybe can kind of shuffle over to left-back if we need a bit of cover for Dean. I know Gareth mentioned Sosa. He looks like a very exciting player. Whether he'll come and sit on the bench, not so sure. Kessler, I think, is another exciting one. I think he's in the mould of what Cash will be. And then I think the most interesting one, I think, will be whether they'll actually go and get a striker, or whether they think, Watkins or Ings are good enough to lead the line. Does Davis stay? Does Archer stay? There's going to be lots of questions over the summer. Paddy's right. We've got lots of guys that we need to move on. It's finding clubs at the right price for those. But yeah, I mean, I think, as you said, the shithousery players are also kind of being added into that one, as well as the ball-playing players that we want to see. And I think it could be controversial, but it's probably whether Mings stays or goes is whether he has the ability to play that football from the centre-back position. But no, it's a very exciting summer, and looking forward to it.
So playing fullback yourself, Connor, you know all about the importance of being next to a centre half who can hold that back line together. Were you pleased with the signing of Diego at centre back?
Yeah, very much. I think before he signed for Villa, I looked at a few clips on YouTube to see what he's like with his skills and attributes and strengths as well. And I thought to myself, he's such a quality signing. He looked absolutely ripped as well. So it looks like he goes to the gym a lot, which is fantastic. It looks good. And I think he'll be. Yeah, I think he can handle it in the Premier League. I think this season coming up, Carlos. And I'm most happy with as well with Kamara. That it's a good job got that over the line. We needed another CDM anyway to help out with Nakamba and Louise. And that's been a massive plus. And then I think what's always been on my wish list as well is definitely Brezuma, because I did mention that in a few other Villa podcasts in the past. And I think, he'll be another good addition for competition in midfield and to help us going forward. And possibly as well, it might be another striker, because I keep hearing about Luis Suarez recently. Apparently Gerard's had chats with him on Zoom, just talk about the project at Villa, and I could possibly see him coming eventually. Don't know when, but yeah. But as I said before coming on, I think summer will be definitely good, and I am confident about the season ahead. So all good.
Yeah. So one last question for you, Gareth, before you got to shoot, and thanks very much.
Yes, mate. Sorry. CPL duties, unfortunately, are calling. Yeah.
No problem. Connor mentioned Suarez. From your perspective, do you think he's still got something to offer, or do you think he's on the way out?
I don't think he's on the way out, but I think we can do a lot better than that. I've had a lot of deep conversations with people on Twitter the last few days, really, that I think it's all very well, but we've got to be careful bringing 35-year-old centre forwards into the club, when we could probably be doing a lot better. If there's this reported 150 million budget, if you like, I know as I do in a lot of my analysis, top strikers are really hard to come by, but we need to that is a key position where you can't afford to be in a year's time looking for another striker because Luis Suarez is off to the MLS on a big payday. I think we need to get someone in like Moreno, for instance, if we can get him, someone like that. Anyone. It's just a proven striker that can play either across that front three or just a normal centre forward. But in my opinion, I don't think that person should be Luis Suarez.
And we've had this conversation off air, Will, but we'll bring it into the masses. Luis Suarez or Cameron Archer?
Well, I think Luis Suarez brings some bite to the attack, but really, I'd be sorry, I'll be going for Archer. I think Archer, when he was at the Villa up until he joined Preston, he was being mentored by Danny Ings, wasn't he? So we'll have learned quite a bit from him already, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. We might see that blossom into a nice striking partnership on the pitch. So I'd go with Archer at the moment. I'd have Archer, Ings, and Wally Hopkins as three of my strikers, and I think we see Keenan Davis potentially go and join my uncle Nottingham now that they've got promotion.
Yep. Congratulations to Forest winning the playoff final.
Thank you.
Right, guys, I'm shooting.
No, thanks very much for joining us, Gareth. Much appreciated.
No worries.
And we'll get you back on next season to talk about many a Villa win.
Top guys. All the best, lads.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you. See you later, Gareth.
See ya.
And And speaking of, you mentioned Keenan Davis there, obviously played for Forest. I think there's a few Huddersfield fans muttering things about VAR based on some of the decisions that didn't go their way this afternoon. I mentioned Cameron Archer, Paddy. Do you think we should bring Keenan Davis back into the Villa fold for next season, or do you think we should take some of Forest's new Premier League millions and do a deal to get him out of the club?
I think that's a gamble that Forest will take. He was given. He's played an awful lot of Premier League games. When you look at it, it's incredible. So he can't say he hasn't had a chance, but he has not shined. I think he only scored 1 goal, did he, against the Baggies? If memory serves me correct. So what we need is goal scorers. For me, I think the Luis Suarez one is going to happen. I have hard-earned cash on the fact that it will happen. But that's not going to be at the expense of anybody else. I think we need 5 fit strikers at the club starting off the season, because it's very easy for 2 players in the one position to get injured. And all of a sudden, if you've got Watkins and Ings injured, at least Archer, Suarez, whoever it is, comes in and is well able to deputise. But we do need that amount of firepower there. And also, you've got Louis Barry coming back in, possibly may go out on another loan. So there will be options there. But I do believe we'll sign Luis Suarez, but not at the expense of Cameron Archer. I think that's needed with the 5 subs to be able to go and change a game. We will need that firepower on the bench.
So, yeah, Swindon fans I know have been giving Louis Barry rave reviews, and it was nice to see him get a run of games in the second half of the season. First half of the season, last seen languishing on the bench for Ipswich, so he things went up for him in the second half of the season, and hopefully long term.
They did, and to be fair to him, it would have been better to see him shine in the Championship, to give him that little bit more of a challenge. It just didn't work out for him at Ipswich. So maybe next season, if he can get a run out in the Championship and maybe stay there for a season, he'll be ready for Premier League the year after.
Yeah, I'd say if we take Archer back, we'll give Preston a call and see if they want Barry to
absolutely
keep the conveyor belt going. And one final wrap-up question before we bring this live episode to a close. And we're very much at the start of the transfer window. We've speculated about plenty of transfers that may happen, some ingoings and some outgoings. But going straight into the realm of wildest speculation, which is what we do best here on Talk of the Trinity. Liam, if you were going to get your crystal ball out and have a look into the future, 12 months, the end of next season, I'll throw in 2 teaser questions for you. Where do you think we'll finish in the league? And will Gerrard still be in charge?
This wasn't in the prepare this one. I think we'll be vying for 7th or 8th. I think we'll probably go one better than the likes of Brighton and Wolves. I think we'll be in that bracket of maybe the West Ham challenging for that Europa Conference. I think Gerrard will still be there. I think the standards that he is going to embed in the squad in this pre-season and throughout the season, I think will start to take place. You know, it did take him a little bit of time to settle into Rangers. And if I remember rightly, when he was with them, he was constantly hanging out the team and the standards that were kind of they were setting and saying that they weren't good enough. And I think he's come into a very good team where standards have been on a level that you can compete. But I think next year competing isn't good enough for Gerrard. He's going to want to be winning every game. So yeah, I'm going to say this the 7th, 8th position, and I think Gerrard will still be there, and I think we'll be here with another exciting summer to look forward to. I agree with Paddy. I think Suarez will be signed this year with the idea that we'll go big next season, on a striker, depending on how Watkins and Ings perform, because we don't need to improve drastically in that position right now. I think if you're going to spend 30 million on Basuma and you've got wages and stuff, and you're going to maybe kind of pick up the bench, I think the striker is a quick fix getting Suarez in. But yeah, that's what I'll say. It's a lucky dip.
Though I'll throw the curveball your way, Connor. Do you think that will be challenging for Europe next season, or do you think that's a bit too soon?
There could be a possibility. like as what Gerrard's doing at the minute, because he did admit recently on Villa TV, he wants winners in his squad, like mentally trained on the pitch throughout the season coming up. Things are looking up, and I will say Gerrard will probably stay. Wants the players what he needs and wants. I think. I know Liam was saying might be finished about 7th or 8th, but it's just with us, like, we're not consistent in every game. I just think we're inconsistent every time, and that needs to stop, in my opinion. Because if we do that again for the season coming up, I just think like we might just finish like 13th or 14th place again. And Gerrard doesn't want that. Gerrard wants us to go higher than 14th. So, in my opinion, probably about 10th or possibility of 9th. But it could be different. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, I'll just laugh at myself. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to see what else Gerrard can bring to the table. Yeah, it's going to be interesting pre-season, and yeah, future's looking bright for Villa. Yeah.
When me and Will are wrong, we've got many others on Twitter laughing at us. So I'll pass that over to Will then. In terms of next season, Gerrard, Villa, where do you see us coming?
I think that we'll win the Grand National, the World Series, Wimbledon. I think we'll do it all, to be honest with you. We'll finish top of the tree, No, being completely honest, I think Liam's right. And I'd like to be, I think actually, Baz, you've been rubbing off on Connor a little bit because that was a bit negative content. I'm going to go positive. I'm going to go with 8th. We're pushing for 8th. With the players that we've got, Gerrard will still be there. If he can get us into Europe, we'll probably have a statue of him outside the stadium because that's what we've been longing for quite a while now. But I think that 8th place finish really will have direct links back to our moment of the season this year. And I'll be honest with you, I think the actual moment of the season was bringing in Philippe Coutinho, just to show the type of player and the ambitions that we got and all of the domino effect it's had in being able to bring in Diego Carlos, Boubacar Kamara, Luka Dean as well. It's showing ambition. It's setting standards for the rest of the team that Gerrard is going out there and saying, look, this is the type of player that I can attract. And if you aren't playing as well as I think you should be, then I'm going to bring somebody in who's better than you to replace you. Look at how well Wendy has done this season. He's been fantastic when he's played, but still can't get a look in ahead of a world-class talent like Philippe Coutinho. So for me, I'm going to go 8th, and Gerrard will still be the man at the helm.
So come over to you, Paddy, for the final word. 8th is the popular choice so far. You going higher or lower?
I'm going higher.
Same.
I'm going higher. We are going to finish 6th next season. I'm completely confident that that's the case. The reason is we've got a winning mentality within the management team. We've got winning mentality within the owners. They will settle for nothing less. We're going to buy big. We're going to bring in winners. We're going to bring in leaders. We're going to bring in people that other clubs are going to be afraid of. And I expect at least Conference League football the year after next. If not, I would consider this start of the project to be a failure. And I think Gerrard does too. I think we need to be playing on a Thursday night in the season after next. And when you think about it, we were 12 points behind West Ham, who finished in that Conference League place. 12 points is absolutely nothing in the grand speak of things. If you think of all those games that we lost, if we'd have just grind out a draw and drawn maybe 4 or 5 more and turned a couple of those losses into wins, which is going to happen with the firepower that we're going to have, with the signings that we're going to bring in, and with the leadership. Now, the one thing I will say is he's very new to management, Steven Gerrard. So let's face it, of the 5 of us on screen could probably go to manage Celtic or Rangers and finished either first or second in the Scottish League. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm a big fan of the league. That's just the way it is. So he's cut his teeth up there. He's obviously assembled a really, really good team who got to the Europa League final at the end of the day this season. So he has something about him. But come November, when we're looking into the break for the World Cup, he can't be blaming players. That needs to stop. That's all on him after that. If he can't get a tune out of players of this quality, then there's something wrong. So, but to be only 12 points off West Ham, and probably only a couple of points more than what we got last season, I don't see any reason why we're not getting into at least sixth.
Well, sixth place next season. I think that's the perfect place to stop before the positivity gets dragged down by me any further. So you literally heard it here first. European football for Villa next season. Don't need to worry. We've all got it sorted. And speaking of having things sorted, our guests tonight have got it all sorted in terms of their Villa input. Thanks to Gareth, who's had to leave slightly early. AVFC Analytics. Keep an eye on his Twitter page for all things statistical and performance analysis on the Villa. Always an interesting comment on there. So thanks to returning regulars, returning heroes, Liam and Connor, for firstly their performances. Yeah, we'll call it performances during the course of the season. Over the last 12 months, and also being back here this evening. Really appreciate you coming to join us. So thanks for that. And thanks to you, Paddy, for coming and giving us your thoughts this evening. And check out the podcast for the love of Paul McGrath if you haven't done already. And before I pass you over to my co-host, Mr. Trinity, for his final thoughts, and also because he has the off button for this stream, so I need to pass it to him to bring things to an end. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening and getting involved on the Twitter page during the course of the season. It's been a hell of a ride. Just imagine how good it's going to be next season when we come sixth. So from me, thanks for all your support during the course of this season. Looking forward to next season, and bye from me for now.
I've just got to say a massive cheers, Tar. Thank you very much to everybody who's listened, streamed the podcast, watched the videos. Thank you, Paddy. Thank you, Liam. Thank you, Con. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you also to Dave. Thank you to Russell. Thank you to Jamie, the people who have been on the show before. And let's hope that it is going to be a positive Villa future. We're going to get Connor to go down to Bodymore Reef and sort that defence out for us. Gareth's going to be sat there next to Stevie G doing the analytics, going, yeah, this is going in the right direction. Because if it isn't, Paddy's going to have his head in his hands going, oh, for the love of Paul McGrath, why can't they just get it right? And Liam will say, don't worry, lads, come over to Qatar, join us, let's watch England flop. But regardless of all that, Baz will hopefully be going, bloody hell, this Villa team are a little bit better than my Arsenal. And I'll be stood there in the Trinity, arms up in the air, singing on Villa till I die. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. Up the Villa.